Only need retaining wall here and around the little corner to make it level. And that's all being donated by Wagner Construction.
Anything else?
If I may, just as an agricultural employer in the area, it is extremely difficult to find new employees that have the agricultural background, especially, for example, right now we're budding trees. To find someone with experience, someone who understands the process between, propagating fruit trees, which really runs this entire area. Something like this could be monumental to local employers, just to give this community and keep this kind of education in this community to help with the local employers. Again, my employer is listed here as one of the donations, and I did talk to ownership about it actually 2 weeks ago, not knowing that the donation was on there, but it, for us as an agricultural employer, it is something that would be very helpful.
Well, it looks to me like we're being asked to come up with less than a third of the cost of this project. And and what's out there now, as we were briefed last time, that doesn't have the proper heating. I mean, it's really not a greenhouse. So we can't approve it, and this isn't a voting meeting, but we will get it on the schedule or on the calendar for the meeting in 2 weeks. But for purposes of letting Phil know where we think, what we think, is it fair to say that there is a head nod in the direction of approving this in 2 weeks or not?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay.
That's all I ask.
Well, thanks very much, and thank you, Phil, for doing what looks like a lot of legwork to get us to this point.
Thanks.
Thank you.
My husband's okay.
Thanks.
I'll thank him tonight. Oh, okay. Excuse me, Mrs. Kraus. So because we're having technical difficulties, I do have Mr. Fee on a Zoom, and this is being recorded so we can upload it to YouTube for tomorrow. So if you as speakers could just make sure that you're speaking loud enough. I tried to sit the computer in the middle. And Lauren, when you present later, if you want to come over here, you may as well. Thank you.
That's good work. Thank you. Go ahead, Sue.
Okay, the next item under curriculum is information regarding out-of-district placement information for students, and yes, Mr. Showers is presenting.
Could you come up towards us so that the audio
right here?
No,
No, no,
it'll have to be over this way, yeah. Thank you, Brad.
Sure. It's okay. I think everyone can see the chart that was presented. Is that available?
Yes, we all have it.
Here, I'll
Okay.
flip.
I have a copy.
And I can give a quick update. So if you remember, there was a question that came up when we approve contracts each year with different outside entities to provide students education at outside locations. There are a number of contracts that come to us or agreements that need to be approved annually. And there was a request from the board to try to compile those into a spreadsheet and just provide a little bit of information about what those entities are so that it helps all of us understand the variety of educational placements and how those are utilized throughout the year. So I'll turn it over to Brad Showers, who is our Student Services Director.
Okay. Hopefully you can see the chart now. It came up for everyone. It's a simple chart. It just talks about the different placements. This is not a comprehensive list of placements. Obviously, there are hundreds of placements across the state. These are simply the placements we've had students at over the past 2 to 3 years. So I think it's self-explanatory. It talks about who can go to these placements, where they're located in a school district or in a center-based, and what services they offer. And the cost that goes with those placements. Now, we talked about not putting the number of students we have currently in those placements. I do have that information separately, as not to identify any individual student. But currently we have no one, like the bottom 6 is in and out placements, a lot of mental health issue placements. We don't have anyone there, but I think of this list right now, we have 34 students in these placements.
They're as needed, and if we need them, they're there and waiting for us and so forth, because many times you don't have much time to react, so they're in place, though, the bottom 6.
Yes, absolutely.
Dave, you may recall that 2 or 3 months back, I asked, as we were approving all of these various contracts and placements and what, could we have a consolidated list that we could look at, just to say, what's the whole picture look like? And that's what we're looking at tonight.
Is there any questions with the terminology or anything? It's on the sheet.
So throughout the year, you'll see contracts for Yellow Breeches or River Rock or some of those kinds of things. And this is a list of potential, hopefully all of the ones that we would see on an annual basis.
Yeah. And you're aware the consortium is obviously Fairfield, Bermuda, and ourselves, which is a cost savings. You can tell by the numbers.
Okay, any questions or comments for Brad? Good list.
Thank you for working with Dr. Corwell to create that. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Pass your first test. Okay, next item is a memo of understanding for the police departments with Vendorsville and Binglerville Police Departments. It's dated June 15, 2022, due to a request from the Pennsylvania State Police due to a change in leadership per the attached documents below. There's also one, I guess, for the Pennsylvania State Police.
What you shared is right on the mark. That's exactly what I would have shared with you. That's what had happened. We were contacted by the Pennsylvania State Police for a change in leadership that they had, and they were requesting us to make an update to our MOU. So that's what we're going to have approved.
Questions or comments on the MOUs? Okay, I think that completes our curriculum and extracurricular. We'll move on to business and operations. Oh, I'm sorry, Dr. Linker. Actually, just let me know when you're in. Okay, so we start the business and operations committee meeting, and the first thing on the agenda is finance. So, Gary.
Sure. Item 4.1 under finance, we have a presentation tonight. We start out with that by Lauren Stato. And she's the managing director of Raymond James. She's going to talk to us about bonds.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you. Here. Nice to be here this evening, and I will come over to the post. Thank you.
It's been a couple years since I've been out to talk to you, so there are some new faces here I see this evening, but again, my name's Lauren Stadel, and I'm a managing director with Raymond James. My partners and I have served the district for a number of years, working to finance your capital projects, and then taking a look at all of your debt over the years to make sure we're catching any refinancing opportunities that may present themselves. And that's what I'm here to talk to you about tonight. You may recall over the past several years, we've taken advantage of extremely low interest rates and we've saved significant monies on some projects that were financed years past. So we have two bond issues that are forthcoming that have call dates that are in the mid to near future. And we think it's prudent to maybe put some mechanisms in place that allow us to refinance those bonds if and when we see economic savings. So for those of you that aren't intimately familiar with the school district's debt, I put together a very brief presentation so that we can just kind of set the table for where we're starting from so that we have a better understanding of what we could be looking at in terms of refinancings. So the first page, which I believe was attached to the agenda as well, but for those of you that are here in person is in front of you tonight, is the district's total outstanding indebtedness on a gross basis. So this is all the principal and interest that you pay for your 4 outstanding bond or bank loan issues. And if you put a little asterisk either with a pen or in your head above column number 2 and column number 3, those are really the 2 issues that we are going to discuss tonight. If you kind of scroll down to the bottom of those 2 columns, you'll see the call dates listed for those 2 as February 1st of 2023 and August 1st of 2024. The 2019 A bonds in column 4 aren't callable until 2028. So I'll see you in 5 years to talk about those. And the 2021 column number 5, there's really next to nothing left on that. And if you look at the interest rate that's associated with it, we will probably never have an opportunity to refinance that at a 0.61%. We're gonna pay that off as it comes due and be very thankful that we got such a great interest rate on that one. So really columns 2 and 3 are the meat of what we want to talk about tonight. You'll see that the district pays about $2.2 million of debt service every year on a gross basis. So that means your principal and your interest that goes out the door. If you flip to page number 3, this takes into account the subsidy that you receive from going through the PlanCon process. So for issues that you've done in the past that were reimbursable due to the PlanCon subsidy that districts can receive for building certain types of projects, this nets out the state subsidy that you receive on a couple of your bond issues, namely the 2017s have a little bit of reimbursement associated with them and the 2021s. You pay the full freight on the series of 19 and 19A because the project was well after the moratorium was put in place for PlanCon projects and there's no money for them to pay out on.
And
On
even
those sorts
on
of
those
things
2
anyway.
you mentioned, the PlanCon, I mean, the difference is
It's-
minimal.
Yeah, you get very little help from the state on those. So that kind of sets the table for what we're looking at from a debt perspective tonight. Talking about interest rates in general, the next 2 pages, I wish we could claim that it was our idea to finance the project when we did back in 2019. But if you look at the interest rate chart and you kind of look past the last 3 years or so, you can see that interest rates, if you look over the last 22 years, we were borrowing at or near the bottom of the market. We hit all-time municipal lows in August of 2020, kind of as a result of the pandemic and what was going on, what the Fed had done with interest rates. We were seeing borrowing rates next to nothing. Since then, if you look kind of to the right side of the chart, rates have been really volatile, and you're all very familiar, I'm sure, with what the Fed has been doing over the last several months to try to tame inflation. So that has caused interest rates to rise. Now it's really affecting short-term rates more so than long-term. Long-term rates are still going up. Mortgages are a lot higher than they were in 2020 and 2021. Municipal bond rates are a lot higher, but not to the magnitude that we're seeing the Fed push the short-term interest rates up, because that's what they can control. All of that to be said is right now where we stand today with bonds, with call dates that are coming up, what could we expect to save? And right now on the 2017 bonds, because they have the nearest call date to us at this point in time, we need a little bit of interest rate drop in order for those to make sense to refinance. So I'm not here tonight to tell you that we're going to go ahead and refinance the 2017s right now, but we want to keep an eye on it, because the other thing people are talking about is recession. And if we do get to a point where recession is real and it's here, interest rates tend to go down in recessionary times. So we want to position the district in a way that we are able to capture a refinance if we see interest rates drop on those 2017s. They're already at a really great rate. I think the average rate on those is 237. So we need rates to cooperate with us a little bit, but over the last month or so, with the recessionary pressures that we're seeing in the market, interest rates are starting to come back down a little bit in the municipal space and in the treasury world. If you're following the 10-year treasury, which is sort of the benchmark for our industry, it's come back down and is around the 260, 270 level, whereas 3 months ago it was near 3.25%. So if we continue to see rates march downward, we might be able to do something on the 2017s later in this calendar year or early 2023 when we're close to that call date. And the good thing about a call date is it's not mandatory. So you can continue to pay on your bonds as you currently are right now. And if interest rates go back up or we never have an opportunity to refinance those bonds, then you continue to pay the 2.37% that you're at right now, and you should be pretty happy about it.
If we did refinance, the rates became attractive enough and we decided to do that, does that extend the length of the loan as well?
Not typically. If we needed, historically, what we've done at Upper Adams is when we refinance, we keep the same final maturity of the debt. We mirror the structure of the debt and take the savings upfront as best we can. Because they're more meaningful in one chunk usually than over the life of the bonds. The other thing we have done here in the past, though, are debt restructurings. So if you found yourself in a position where you needed 2 or 3 years of relief in your budget, that's something we could also look at that point in time. But in that scenario, you might need to stretch the debt out a little bit more. But historically, in the way most refinancings are done, you keep the same amortization, you don't extend debt at all, so you're not burdening yourselves further down the line. So the recommendation, I would say, and we met with your administration about 2 months ago or so to talk about this. Since we have 2 bond issues that are, within the viewpoint of being able to maybe refinance, and actually the 2019s have a higher coupon on them. So as we get closer to that call date on the 2019s, we might be able to actually refinance those because the way that they were structured when we first did them just makes them a little more attractive to be able to refinance. Plus they're longer. So the longer debt that you have remaining, the more juice you can squeeze from the apple. You wouldn't refinance probably your 5-year mortgage because paying the cost to do so more than likely would eat up any savings in refinancing your mortgage. Same thing with a bond issue. The more life that's left on it, the more juice you can squeeze out of refinancing because you enjoy that lower interest rate for a longer period of time.
So if I could interrupt.
Please.
So that, what you just said makes me go towards column 3 from column 2. The longer,
Yes.
the 2019 bond as opposed to the 2017.
Yep. And what we would do should you pass a resolution to kind of put these on the books and say, let's get everything in place to be able to act quickly and not have to wait for a regularly scheduled board meeting and be able to get into the market when it's most advantageous to the district, is we would be in communication with your administration and therefore to the board to tell you, hey, the 2017s, we might not be able to save $500,000 on, but if we get to a point where interest rates have dropped a little bit and you can save $100,000, $200,000, we'll put it in front of you and give you the decision of, is that attractive to you? Because it becomes a fiscal housekeeping sort of thing with debt that's shorter like that in column number 2. If we can squeeze a little bit more out of it, it's our job to show it to you. But if you say it, we'll just kind of pay where we're at, that's fine too. I think the 2019s are where we're going to see some really attractive savings unless interest rates go really haywire in the next 3 to 4 years. Because of the time left to run on that one, that's going to be a juicier number, I think, when we get the opportunity to do it. But the recommendation here that we would be making tonight is that at your meeting in 2 weeks, the board pass what's called a parameters resolution. And for those of you that have been here for a number of years, you're familiar with that mechanism, but for those of you that aren't, what it does is it allows the district to get all of the necessary paperwork filed with DCED, the Department of Community and Economic Development, which you are required to do because you are a local government unit under the eyes of the state. Getting that paperwork filed allows us to then act quickly, because historically, prior to the financial crisis of 08-09, you would wait for a regularly scheduled board meeting and maybe you'd sell bonds that day and you'd lock it up that night with a regularly scheduled meeting of the board. But because interest rates and markets are so volatile anymore, this mechanism allows us to get everything in place and then communicate with the administration and say, hey, we see an opportunity at this point in time. We already have authorization from the board. We can go ahead and we can put together a financial packet to send to the credit rating agencies if we're doing a bond issue. Or if we're doing a bank loan, we have the ability to send out an RFP for bank loan refinancings. It gives you the most flexibility. And so really all that we're putting in front of you tonight is let's get the mechanisms in place for these two upcoming refinancings. And what's the downside? There are two costs that you'll have to pay in order to do this. The advertising fee with the newspaper and a filing fee with DCD. So I would say at most you'll be out of pocket $2,000 to $3,000 in order to get all of this filed. If you never do anything and never do the refinancings, the costs and expenses end there. And the resolution and the authorization kind of sits to perpetuity. And so if interest rates go really haywire, and then 5 years from now they come back down, that authorization is still good. And we could still come back and say, hey, remember that financing we talked about 5 years ago? It actually works now. We can go ahead and do it. And so it's just we think a prudent mechanism to put in place because there's next to no downside and it gives the financing team and the administration the most flexibility to act and get on top of attractive interest rate markets as they present themselves.
But the earliest that anything could happen would be the first call date, which is February of 23.
It is, with one caveat, and we can go into this briefly. The 2019 bonds with the 2023 call date, they cannot be, sorry, pardon me, yes, 2024, early 2024. So we could be, sorry, mid 2024, mid 24. We could be doing something early 2024 on those. Prior to, this is going to get a little into the weeds, but I'll make it brief. Prior to the tax reform that went into effect in 2018, you could do tax exempt refinancing. So you borrow on a tax exempt basis because you're a tax exempt organization. You could do tax exempt refinancings of debt kind of whenever you wanted to. And we did a lot of what are called advance refundings, which means they are in advance of the call date more than 90 days. After 2018 or beginning Jan 1 of 2018, the federal government said you may no longer do advance refundings on a tax exempt basis, but you are permitted to issue taxable debt. And you might scratch your head and say, well, why would we issue taxable debt if, it's going to be a slightly higher interest rate than tax exempt debt? One, it gives you the ability to do some of these refinancings. And when Treasury rates were at all-time lows, US 10-year was at a 0.6%. It actually made a lot of sense for some districts to do these taxable advance refundings as on a taxable basis because you couldn't legally do it on a tax exempt basis. Let's take advantage of the fact that rates are at all-time lows and lock in some savings. So while more than likely, it will probably be early 24 that we're actually doing something on the 19s. We want to get the authorization in place now because if taxable rates were to drop again, the way that they did during the pandemic, we might be able to refinance those earlier than 2024 on a taxable basis.
Okay. In as much as I understood that, okay. But I think for me, what you're really saying, and other board members may have a different take on me, that you're suggesting that we do this to be prepared in the event that interest rates come down and the foreseeable future for interest coming down is largely dependent upon entering a recession.
It is, but it's also dependent upon any number of factors. No one could have predicted very well the pandemic, and we thought interest rates were going to be rising through 2019 and into 2020. And then the pandemic completely shifted the tide of that. In addition, the Ukrainian attacks, that kind of pushed interest rates back down again. So yes, while maybe the most predictable item would be a recession, there's any number of other unpredictable things that could happen that could push rates back down again.
But for $3,000, this exists in perpetuity.
Yes.
Once you use it, you have to start over with another 3,000 or.
Once you use it, no. So if, let's say, in a year, it makes sense to do the 2019s for some reason and not the 2017s, we could peel off a portion of that authorization and issue a refinancing of the 2019s, and then in another 3 years, that the remaining authorization still stands.
Okay.
And so you could still do the 2017s. You can slice it and dice it in any way you want.
And you've mentioned banks there, very seldom, but occasionally banks will get involved and give you a better rate than going out in the bond market.
That's right.
Has that happened lately, or do you?
We haven't seen that as much lately because the banks, they knew interest rates were going up, everyone did. But in environments where interest rates are increasing, banks are much more hesitant to lend money on a long-term fixed basis because they know they're probably going to end up underwater at some point. So we haven't been seeing as many successful bank loan RFPs, but every time we do a financing, we what we call dual track it. And we say, let's at least ask the question of the banks, because you don't know until you ask them what they might be willing to lend. And sometimes you have a local lender that wants to step up and say, this is in our backyard, let's give them a better deal than we would if somebody from York County gave us a call.
I called last time.
We didn't, but we got a good one. We got one good one, and that 0.61. So
Yeah.
that's all it takes too.
And that's a bank note too,
Yes.
With the local
Yeah,
bank.
exactly. Mhm.
with a local bank.
And so the authorization allows us to do either both,
Right.
do 17s one way, the 19s another way. It gives you the most flexibility
Just announce that
possible.
we're in the market. Okay.
Right.
And have the paperwork in place to act.
Exactly.
Okay, any other questions or comments for Lauren?
So in 2 weeks, you'll see somebody back here, either myself or Ken Phillips, my partner, and bond counsel will be putting together a resolution, and that'll be included in the packet that night. And if you have any
Well-
questions that,
Right, and I don't want to give you the wrong impression. Whether the board approves it or not is up to the board at
Certainly.
that point.
Yep.
But we appreciate you coming in this evening and explaining all this.
yep, and if any questions come up, we're happy to answer them again next time we're out here. So we'll see you back in 2 weeks.
Mr. Everett has a question.
I don't have a question. I was hoping you'd have, I call it our amortization table and
Mhm.
so forth, that we have 2.82 that we've dedicated, 2.82
Mills.
mills we've
Mhm.
dedicated towards debt service and so forth. And it's always nice as a board member to sit and watch. I mean, this past year, we had a $500,000, what I'll call balloon payment
Mhm.
that we had to be ready for. And I have amortization schedules, again, as I call them, that are close, but I'm not sure they are the actual one that we are using. Do you have that, or can you make that available?
We
to
can,
us?
yep.
Okay.
I'll work with the administration and make sure we have the correct value of a mill in there, and
Right,
we're showing everything accurately. But yes, and that's good memory. We got over that balloon, well, we're getting over that balloon
that
payment.
was a
in-
concern. I know
in
you
this year,
told me,
yeah,
you know,
we-
$500,000,
Yep.
$500,000.
Yep, and that was something we couldn't restructure around. We had
No.
created some room
There was
before that.
One
That
ran
was
out,
that one year
ran
we
out
couldn't,
one way, and
we
then
couldn't
we
do,
were-
so.
Those that have been on the board for a few years, were expecting that, so it wasn't a
Yep.
surprise.
Yeah.
Yeah, you had planned for it well, and to not be surprised by it is a good thing, but it'll be a breath of relief to kind of have that in your rearview mirror, I'm sure. So we'll work on getting that schedule
Right,
put together
thank
for you. You bet. All
I
right,
don't think there's any more coming up, but,
you know where to find us if there are.
all right.
Thanks very
Thank
much.
you.
Thanks, Mark. That, here.
Okay, continuing on under finance, item 4.2 is a memorandum of understanding which Schroeder Family Dentistry. As per the attached document, maybe Ms. Hobbs can expand on it.
Yes, this is a yearly renewal that we bring to the board to have on record for part of our PDE reporting. So this is just our annual review of the dentist.
Any questions or comments?
No money exchanges hands. It's a
Yeah.
consulting that they do, basically.
Correct.
Okay, item 4.3 is my school bucks food service waiver of fees as per the attached document. Again, Ms. Haas can expand on this.
What I'm asking the board to review and maybe to accept the proposal is, we all know, starting the school year for 22-23, parents and guardians will be responsible for paying for meals unless they are approved through the free and reduced application process. So currently, parents may make payments onto My School Bucks to add money to their child's account for breakfast or lunch, or they may still send in cash or checks, and that still gets applied to the student's account. However, when parents use My School Bucks, there is a convenience fee that the parents pay. And I'm trying to look at some flexibility of putting a proposal together, of how we could maybe help and work together between the parents and the district to encourage the use of My School Bucks and to put money on the child's account. If they, you can still do, like I mentioned, the check and the cash, but this is an electronic option, and looking to waive the convenience fees at 3 opportunities during the school year. When we first come back at the beginning of the school year, around tax refund time, and at the end of the school year. That way encourages folks, once again, to put that money on the account so their child may have the appropriate funds to buy lunch or breakfast as they need. Once again, I don't predict that the cost to the district, which would hit the food service account, not the general fund, would be about 20,000. I think that's even a high figure. Right now, the food service account does have a nice reserve balance that would be able to handle this. And would be also looking at providing some relief to the parents and to provide that encouragement as well.
I had a little problem when I looked, not a problem, but $20,000 at $2.75 a transaction is a lot of transactions. Is that reasonable that we'd have that many transactions?
You could, because right now we have parents that will make one transaction for one student within their family. And if they have 3 students that they're putting money on, that would be 3 separate fees. It's not just as a household. And we're trying to,
And how long, what period of time are they buying meals for?
well, it depends on, with the lunch prices, where they're at the elementary or the secondary, how
Okay,
they
all right.
deplete those funds. And if they would buy any extras.
Okay, so if they have multiple children, or they do this frequently instead of for their own personal finances, they don't do it, like 2 months at a time. They do it a week at a time. You could quickly come up to the number of transactions that equals
Yes.
20,000 divided by $2.75.
Yes, and the max that you can currently put on using My School Bucks is capped at $120. Per transaction.
Have we used this My School Bucks thing before?
Yes, it's been in play for many years.
I've never seen anything like this. This is a new initiative that you've come up with.
Yes, actually, borrowed from previous school districts that I've seen and trying to see how we can work together, as a district and in the community during this transition after having meals free to the students for the last 2 years.
And the final question is, the maximum that the district, the food service account would subsidize is $20,000 of these fees. And if you're the person that comes in at the $20,001, you don't get the
I would suspect that we'll be monitoring this, and as we're coming up near like the end of the school year, if we're reaching that, I would like to come back and ask to increase that if the food service account can
if the
adhere to
money's
that.
available. Yeah, the food service account is always generated. It's always had positive cash flow or positive balance.
Yeah, we try to keep it self-sustaining.
Yeah,
Of
that's
course,
the word I'm
there's
looking for, self-sustaining.
subsidizing it. And it also encourages parents to give it as a bulk rather than $10 this week, $10 next week. I mean, $10 isn't gonna get you much as far as for lunch anymore, but it encourages, and if they know it ahead of time, they can do some planning too. And it is capped at 120 though, correct? And,
Yes.
I'm not aware of that. I sort of slipped by, but yeah.
Does it,
And we do have some families that do, they have it on a regular schedule and they are paying that $275 transaction fee each week
Right.
as they have it set up for their budget. So it will help provide some relief for them as well.
But only during that time.
Right.
During those time frames.
is the, is this program, the, my school bucks thing, is it used very much in this district?
I think more prefer to have the cash in the checks that they send in because there is a convenience fee. I know some districts have started, they've tried these pilot programs to see and to encourage the use of my school bucks. And then they will move to, covering that fee in the future.
What I'm trying to tickle out of you is you would rather have the my school bucks, so you don't have to process cash and checks and all the
That is correct.
associated headaches with that.
Because it can be, those things can be lost between home and the school bus to the homerooms, especially probably at the elementary level. And within the My School Bucks function itself, we have other opportunities to do separate things outside of the cafeteria realm.
So the quid pro quo here is the district will foot the up the bill up to $20,000. And for the school district, in return, they don't have to deal with checks and cash and they got lost and, all those headaches sort of go away because it's all done electronic.
Or reduced.
Well, but if it's done, yes, if they continue to do the checks, then nothing changes. But if everybody went with my school bucks, then the accounting processing would be a lot more streamlined. So there's something in it for both sides, the families and the district.
Okay.
And within this attachment too, I do want to say, for those that will be watching this, the link for the free and reduced application is in this as well, if they need that ahead of time.
Good initiative.
Thank you. Item 4.4, additional service request for Aramark. And it's to Aramark for district courier service, not to exceed 2 hours per day at a maximum cost of $10,000 for school year 22-23.
So back in around April or May, the board approved the retirement of Mr. Roth, who was our district courier. That job was posted. We did not have any applicants for that position. And this is one position that we could not have Kelly Education do because it's a liability being a courier going from building to building. So we've had some conversations with Aramark if they would be able to fulfill that duty for us. And they would be able to, however, we currently have our contract with Aramark that is for custodial and maintenance and grounds. So this would be an added expense that we would be seeing with Aramark, up to $10,000. Right now, I'm estimating the courier, some days, if there aren't any boxes, the courier service may only take an hour to go to the different buildings. But if there's boxes and some deliveries, it could be, an hour and 15 or an hour and a half. And working in with Mr. Proffen with Aramark, just given some flexibility of a maximum of 2 hours, not to exceed the $10,000. And this would be for the school year for 180 days. Currently, during the summer, we sort of float from building to building, or as administrators are coming to the district office for meetings, they may bring the mail with them.
Year over year, is the $10,000 close to what we were paying?
Yes, I mean, well, it's actually less because we had a personnel that was also receiving district benefits.
So that's the point I'm trying to make. This is an additional $10,000. This is money that we had been spending anyway. And it turns out we're spending more than that.
And this would be using a district vehicle as we
Correct.
had in the past. And it is on an hourly basis, so it's an hour and a half today and 2 hours tomorrow. It's per,
Right.
it's not a daily basis
Right.
per diem. Okay.
Thank you. Moving on, item 4.5, donations. I'd like to accept the following donations. $500 from G-Force, that's Bob and Donna Gano, to purchase spiritware for the upcoming 4th grade students at the Upper Adams Intermediate School. Also, $250 for from Upper Adams Lions Club to purchase spiritware, again, for the upcoming 4th grade students at the Upper Adams Intermediate School. So thank you to both.
Yeah, I won't be here at the next board meeting where we approve all these things. So let me say now that the board is very thankful to members of the community who donate to support this district and what's going on. And in this case, Bob and Donna Gano, as well as the Upper Adams Lions Club, we really appreciate it.
This is 750 covered, Sonia, or still looking
not
for
quite
more?
yet.
Okay.
Every student t-shirt.
Right. And that's been tradition.
We try to set up, yeah. Somebody that's PTO to contribute.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. James?
All right, well, moving down into personnel under section 5.2, we have the approval of 2 new hires, Rachel Costello, 4th grade teacher, and Benjamin Arnold, the instrumental music teacher, both in the Upper Adams Intermediate School. Rachel comes in at instructional step 1, and Benjamin is at step 4.
And if I may, please, we just received word that Ms. Costello will not be joining us. She has accepted a position closer to home, so that position has been reposted at this time for 4th grade. And that will also impact the mentee and the mentor that Mr. Ratowski will mention a little later.
We just learned about that, so we weren't able to make the update on the agenda to meet sunshine.
All right, so we'll be looking at a different agenda next 2 weeks. And then we have the approval of transfers of professional staff members in Mills from IST in the AM to EL in the AM. And Kathy Gilden from the English language teacher to in the AM to a learning support teacher, Melinda Johnson to a learning support teacher, and Pam Schaefer from 6th grade teacher to an IST teacher, and Kristen Long from 1st grade to 2nd grade.
And I'm told, Sonia, I could ask you to explain it, you would do a good job of it, but I wouldn't understand it anyway. But the purpose of this is to get properly certified teachers meeting our students, correct?
Correct. With the
Without
six-
hiring a new person.
Correct, with our large increase with the learning support in 6th grade. Had to do a little bit of shuffling around to service them. And that's how I did it. If anybody wants to know the details, I can tell you, but you are covered with.
Well, thank you, and thank the teachers, I'm sure they agreed to this,
Yeah, they
so.
did.
Okay. And then under 523, we have a listing of individuals to grant tenure for professional staff. I noticed one of those people is
Yes, that would be Mr. Swipe, yes, and he has earned the tenure within this year, the 21-22 year. So he has been granted tenure for this year before he moves
We
on.
grant him tenure,
Yes,
we grant him tenure and he takes it with him.
yes.
All right, and then moving on to the classified staff, we have the reassignment of Brooke Roberts from elementary administrative assistant at the intermediate school to administrative assistant and some at high school guidance. They go down for 7.5 hours per day. Portion of the year, and she will be replacing Kyle Flook.
I don't see, or I don't recall who is coming in behind Brooke at the intermediate school.
Well, we do have in the next item, a posting and advertising. of the-
Yeah, but that's for the elementary school.
The job description is posted as elementary, but you're right, Tom, it is the intermediate.
Okay,
Position.
so that, all right. Got it. Thank you.
Any questions? All right, let's move on to supplemental contracts. I will not read on, but we do have supplemental contracts for athletics, education. There's several individuals listed for supplemental contracts as mentors on the education, and then we have other student activities where we have high school student counselor as well. Providing support. We also have under 5.5, volunteer.
Excuse me, before you go any further, 5.4.2. I'm assuming that the Rachel Costello inductee will be zeroed out, and the Ashley Wilkinson being the mentor for Rachel will also be zeroed out until we have a new name.
That is correct.
Are you planning, can I just ask a question?
Yeah.
Sonia, are you planning to utilize Ashley Wilkinson for,
Yes.
Okay.
Just be the mentor, or would just be a different.
Just
Okay.
fill in the right name.
Okay.
when-
Yeah.
When we get a name.
thank
It'll
you.
Still be Ashley.
Okay. Sorry.
All right. We're good. So it's under 5.5, we do have an additional individual listed in the volunteer listing, and then under other contracted services, we call this being mostly blank.
That's correct. Completely blank.
And it still is. Okay, nothing to worry about there.
All right. Great. I think that's it for personnel then. So we move to the ESSER Health and Safety Plan, Dr. Dahl.
As I mentioned back, the last time that we approved this, every 6 months we bring it back. This is something that we will need to continue to have in place until we expend the ESSER's money. There have been minimal updates. As you can see, the updates in this document are in red. It basically consists of dates, the school year, changing some items from 2021 to 2022 and 2022 to 2023, that the education that we are providing, we are fully reopening school this year. Food services does reflect the free and reduced lunch application, and that there will no longer be the option for meals being free. And there are a few other statements in it that are pretty self-explanatory, but there were things added that say if needed or as needed statements that have been added, depending on if there is, resurgence of COVID, or we see something really, return back to something we've seen 2 years ago. So it's a document that we're,
crossing the Ts and dotting the Is. It is a document that we will have in place for the beginning of the school year, and then we will bring back another one at January, around that time, or February, to have that approved again to get us through the entire year. This document was reviewed by our administrative team during our administrative symposium in June, and it was reviewed by our school nurses prior to the end of the school year to get feedback.
Any questions or comments? The last item is a technology update. Again, back to you, Dr. Bill.
Just, I want to thank each of you, and I know a number of our administrators, for your patience as we're working through some technology within our district. As all of you know, technology is the backbone of a lot of what we do within our district. And it's connected with a number of things that we do, and we hold a very high expectation that technology works. And when it doesn't, solutions are determined, communicated, agreed upon, and implemented. As you can see, we had some challenges this evening with our technology. We're continuing to have some challenges with the current technology contract that we have. And we are working with Quest Tech staff to address those district concerns. I would just ask from the board, if a change is needed, and we have discussed and investigated other options to try to help us through some of these challenges, I am willing to bring a proposal to the board in order to have a plan in place if the board would authorize me to do so. So if something wouldn't be working out over the next few weeks, I would like to try to find a different solution if that's possible.
Well, I certainly support. I mean, the fact is, the IT is the front office and back office backbone of the school district. And if it doesn't work, then, you know, we're not a school district anymore. We're just a collection of people sitting in a building. So whatever has to be done to ensure that it's operable and reliable has to be done. Does anyone object to that statement or have anything they want to discuss about it? Great. All right. So if you feel you have to go somewhere else, then that's what you have to do. Whatever you come up with, we'll wait to hear from you on how things are progressing. Thank you. That completes our agenda for this evening. Is there any further discussion? Okay, well, thank you very much for your attention this evening.